In 1993, Mariah Carey made an album so commercially dominant that it didn't just top the charts, it broke them. It sold 30 million copies. It conquered every continent, but it also became a cage she'd spend the next 4 years trying to escape. We are deep in the 1994 era now. Last time we looked at Janet Jackson's Janet, which represented creative liberation, an artist finally getting to make exactly what she wanted. Music Box is almost the inverse. This is an album about domination, commercial, global, absolute, but at what cost? Today, we're going deep on how it happened, the staggering numbers that defined it, and why Mariah Carey's biggest triumph is also her most complicated legacy. To understand Music Box, you need to understand the pressure Mariah was under in 1992. Her debut had been a phenomenon. 5 consecutive #1 singles, 9 million copies sold in America alone. She'd arrived as the most successful new artist of the decade. Then came Emotions. Critics loved it. They called it more mature, more raw, Mariah channeling 60s and 70s gospel. She was stretching, growing as an artist. Columbia Records, however, was less enthusiastic. Emotions sold 8 million copies worldwide. By any normal measure, a massive success. But it wasn't Mariah Carey numbers. The label got nervous. Their solution? Pull back, return to formula. Make something safer, smoother, and more palatable to adult contemporary radio. And here's where the story gets complicated, because 3 months before Music Box dropped, Mariah married Tommy Mottola, the head of Sony Music, Columbia's parent company. She was 24, and he was 43. The press called it a fairy tale. Mariah talked about romance and pink roses, and she had a wedding dress inspired by Princess Diana. What we know now tells quite a different story. She would later call their Bedford estate Sing Sing, after the maximum security prison in upstate New York. But in 1993, that was all still behind closed doors. So what did Columbia actually want from this album? Walter Afanasieff, Mariah's main collaborator, was pretty explicit about the brief. The goal was to make the album softer and more pop-oriented. His phrase was filling the songs with air, which is a polite way of saying tone down the gospel belting, smooth out the edges, give us something that dominates radio without scaring anyone away. But Mariah still found small ways to rebel. Dreamlover was where she planted her flag. She wanted to sample a hip-hop loop, the Emotions' Blind Alley, a track previously flipped by Big Daddy Kane. Years later, she explained it, quote, "I loved the freedom of writing on top of that beat and bringing it into what most people consider a pop record." This was the first real hint of where Mariah Carey actually wanted to go. But Columbia heard the original and forced Afanasieff to add a Hammond B3 organ to pop it up. She won the battle to release it as the lead single, and it became one of the biggest hits of her career. While the ballads were designed for adult contemporary domination, the album's up-tempo tracks reveal a shrewd business strategy. Songs like Now That I Know and I've Been Thinking About You are pure pop confections. They're danceable, energetic, and clearly designed to remind listeners of the up-tempo energy from her debut album. It was a calculated move to ensure the album wasn't just ballads, keeping the pop audience engaged while the slow jams courted older listeners. But the soul of the album, for me at least, lives in Anytime You Need a Friend. This is arguably one of the finest gospel pop tracks of the 90s. It's built on an almost 80s style gospel structure, massive choir harmonies, soaring vocals, and a message of spiritual support.
I definitely like integrating gospel music into my music. I mean, in terms of the vocal arrangements and the style of singing, that's something that is just a type of music that is really inspirational for me. So I like to try and bring some of those elements into what I do.
And for the club kids, Mariah commissioned an incredible set of remixes from C&C Music Factory that turned this gospel anthem into a 10-minute house epic. It proved she could still dominate the dance floor even when the label wanted her in a ball gown. Then there's Never Forget You, a collaboration with Babyface, another hint at where she was hoping to move her sound. It was released as a B-side to Without You in many territories, and a double A-side in the US. This track is a quiet outlier. It's a beautiful, simple R&B ballad that feels like it belongs on her first album. In terms of structure and genre, it's much closer to her roots than the polished pop of the rest of Music Box. It was Mariah keeping a foot in the R&B world even as the machine pushed her toward pop. The biggest hits, however, were almost accidents. Hero was originally written for Gloria Estefan to sing in the Dustin Hoffman movie Hero. Mariah didn't want to keep it. She thought it was too schmaltzy, too earnest, not really her. But Tommy Mottola heard the demo and demanded she keep it. So she did. And the song she thought was too corny became the defining anthem of her early career. #1 on Christmas Day. Then there's Without You, a cover of the Badfinger classic made famous by Harry Nilsson. Mariah released her version on January 21, 1994. Harry Nilsson had died of a heart attack just 6 days earlier. Without You became her biggest international hit to that point. But there's another grim footnote. Both Badfinger songwriters eventually died by suicide years apart, both connected to financial disputes over royalties from this very song. The music industry creates beautiful things, but it's rarely kind to the people who make them. So, did the strategy work? To say it worked is an understatement. Music Box didn't just sell, it saturated the entire planet. We often throw around the number 30 million copies sold, but let's break down what that actually looked like, because the international stats are mind-blowing. In Japan, it sold over 2.4 million copies. For a Western artist, this is unheard of. In Australia, it spent a staggering 18 weeks at #1. In Europe, this is where Without You did most of the heavy lifting. That single went to #1 in Germany, Sweden, Switzerland, Austria, and Ireland.
This album was much more like I had moderate success over there with the first two, but this album and Unplugged, but this album really kind of clicked over there. So it's really doing well. So I'm happy, excited, because it's really great to have that many people get to hear your music.
In the UK, it gave Mariah her first ever solo #1 single. To put the sales numbers into a modern perspective, Taylor Swift's Midnights is a massive blockbuster that did about 6 million equivalent units globally in its first 2 months. Mariah did 30 million in physical sales. People were driving to record stores in Paris, Tokyo, Berlin, Sydney, London to buy this album. It wasn't just a hit. It was a monoculture event. If you're enjoying this breakdown, please take a second to like and hit subscribe so you don't miss future videos. We cover the full 90s pop era, one album at a time. For years, Mariah seemed to hold Music Box at arm's length, but recently she's started to reclaim it. For the album's 30th anniversary in 2023, she released an expanded anniversary vinyl box set. And if you look closely at the cover art, it tells us a story. The original 1993 cover is a tight close-up of her face. It's conservative, safe. The 30th anniversary reissue uses the full uncropped photo from that same shoot. It shows her full body looking far more natural and relaxed. Exactly the kind of image Tommy Mottola reportedly forbade at the time.
I was stuck wearing a turtleneck for the first 5 years of my career. I couldn't wait to get that nonsense over with.
Even more significantly, the reissue finally gave a global spotlight to Everything Fades Away. For decades, this track was relegated to a bonus track on international editions, but fans have always known it as the album's true masterpiece, a haunting, moody track that ends with a long, improvised outro where Mariah just wistfully sings in her lower register. It didn't fit the perfect pop princess image they were trying to convey in 1993. It was too dark, too raw. By putting it on the main track list for the 30th anniversary, Mariah is completing the picture, showing us the album she wanted us to hear. But we have to talk about what this album represented. Mariah was 24, living in a mansion she couldn't leave without permission. Her image was carefully managed, innocent, wholesome, approachable. In her memoir, Mariah was explicit. Quote, "They kept trying to smooth me out while I just wanted to get a little more rough." There was also a racial dimension to it. She wanted to integrate hip-hop, a black art form that Tommy Mottola just didn't understand. He wanted her to be Barbara Streisand. She wanted to be closer to Mary J. Blige. So where does Music Box actually sit in history? Commercially, it's the absolute peak of Mariah's career. That album transformed her from an American pop star to a global icon. Artistically, it's the moment she stopped being just a vocalist and became a product. The packaging was perfect, the face was perfect, but the person inside was fighting to be heard. The highs are genuine. Anytime You Need a Friend is a vocal masterclass. Everything Fades Away is a hidden jewel. But Music Box matters because it gave Mariah the power to become who she really was. The commercial dominance bought her a little bit more creative freedom. The global success gave her leverage. She built a gilded cage in 1993. And then spent the next 4 years of her career figuring out how to break it open.